Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. We're excited to have Innovia's licensing specialist with us, Jeff Progulski, and he will be presenting on Don't Be the Next Victim of Cyber Criminals. He's going to be covering security in Office 365. And as a reminder, we are recording this webinar, and we will post it to our on-demand webinar library for you to review again or share with anyone. And we encourage you to ask questions during our presentation, so please feel free to type them into the questions box, and we will answer them at the end of our session. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to kick off our presentation.
All right, thanks Angie, and thanks everyone for attending. As the slide says, we are going to be talking about security in Office 365. That's me. It's November, so it's okay to post Christmas pictures. Just wanted to make sure that everyone knows I'm not the most serious guy here at Innovia. But in my role as pre-sales and licensing, I get involved in a lot of interesting conversations, and a lot of them recently, well, maybe not recently, but certainly in the last 18 months have dealt with security. So this was a great topic for me to present on. I want to start with just this perception that I'm too small a business for hackers to attack me. And we've had, if you've been following our social media, our blogs or newsletters, you know that we had our own security scare here a couple of years ago, where someone spoof an email and send some request some money that they almost got. Here's just a couple examples. We'll return to this. Someone was fooled by an email and $5,000 worth of iTunes gift cards. Those sorts of things are happening more and more. And as we get a little bit further into the presentation and into the data, you'll see that these can be very expensive, even though a lot of times they seem like initially small issues. So I would say that the point really is that no organization is too small to worry about security, especially in this 2021. So something else that that makes things more difficult is the fact that with COVID, there's just been an increase in the activity, whether that's because people have more time to try to exploit security holes, or if it's that because organizations were in a rush to allow workers to connect remotely to environments and they overlooked security. It certainly has increased. Cyber attacks have increased over the last 18 months. This data is from 2020, but basically the challenges that we are faced with in terms of security, I've got here in bullet points. Some people would laugh at understaffed security teams because most organizations don't have anyone. They're either not big enough or they lack the resources to have someone just responsible for security. It's the IT guy, it's the IT admin, and he's responsible for making sure NAV and Business Central work, that email fund, and all the things just have to work. And then after you get them all working and operational, then you start to worry about how secure are they in privacy, etc. So all of these security challenges, I'm sure, apply and resonate with everyone on the call today. So first of all, just some level setting. So Microsoft has a unique vantage point that other security providers just don't have. So in this case, this data is from 2019, but from a platform, they've got 300 billion user activities, across all their Windows machines, their Azure, and even Xbox users. And then so those are the platforms that Microsoft owns. And then in terms of transaction, they've got the breakdown there on the right of identity, email, documents, web. So these are all obviously huge numbers that Microsoft is dealing with. So when they are talking about developing a security platform, they probably have more data than any other organization. This actually, this slide here is from their most recent digital defense document that came out last month. It's a 134-page document. You can look that up if you're interested in, and just over 24 trillion daily security signals is what they're using to power their artificial intelligence or AI powered predictions. And then they've also got, as they show here, 8,500 plus experts that just reside on Microsoft employees that are focused on security. So a huge number of both resources and data points to kind of understand what your security concerns are, and really looking at, you know, attack vectors and all of those technical terms. But Microsoft's got a huge bench of resources to sort of focus on this stuff. So basically, what do we want to do? We want to protect everything. So that's the goal. How do we do that? That's a little trickier. And really, it's sort of I mean, I guess you want to safeguard your entire organization, but, you know, but how do you do that, and how do you do that cost effectively? And that's really what we're talking about in terms of 365. Office 365 also involves, there's some Azure resources in there, and you know, Microsoft, when your data is on Office 365, there's over 100 data centers across the planet. Each data center has its own security within the physical data center. Then obviously the cloud infrastructure has all the network protection with custom hardware, and then operationally we've got all the Microsoft security experts and the 24/7 monitoring, etc. So the first thing that really makes it easy when we start to talk about being on Office 365 and understanding what your security looks like within your organization is that you can go to the Microsoft Secure Score, and that's, you know, a pretty straightforward, easy to understand. They you know, have it broken down into these different areas: identity, data, device, apps, and infrastructure if you have them. And it starts to give you some, it gives you a score, and then it gives some improvement actions. If you see here, there's 12 improvement actions now near the bottom of this picture, 65 improvement actions that are not completed. So there's a lot of room for improvement in this example. But the nice thing about it is that it does track your information, and it tracks it over time. So you can you can see what your score is, and some of these things are easy to implement, and some require more planning and user adoption that makes them more difficult. But you know, at least understanding where you are is an important step. A huge issue we've got is remote work, as I said, protecting against lost and stolen passwords. How do you secure, you know, work apps, especially your ERP that has all your most precious business data in it? And then what's a secure way to enable remote desktop access without opening a bunch of security holes? So the number one thing, and I'm gonna hit on this at the end, but the number one thing you can do from a security perspective with Office 365 especially, but this also applies to any other platform that your IT is leveraging, is using multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication is a way, not only do you need a password, but you also need something else. Here we've got highlighted the passwordless technology using either the Microsoft Authenticator app, Windows Hello, which uses your device's camera to identify who is in front of it, You can use a 502 security key, which is an actual USB device similar to a key for your car that needs to be plugged in before you unlock certain resources, and then biometrics like a fingerprint or retinal scanner. So those are all passwordless technologies. There's also things like the push notifications, text messaging, or voice. So basically, when someone's logging in, that is the part that makes it really difficult for the cyber criminals to access resources that they shouldn't have. There have been tools for as long as there have been passwords, I imagine, that are designed to crack passwords. But when you have a password, that's only part of what you need when you have multi-factor authentication enabled. I know when, and Angie and I were just talking about this before the presentation today, but having multi-factor authentication is sometimes can be annoying. In our case, or in my case, I use the Microsoft Authenticator app. So every time I log into an Innovia resource, whether that's a website, an application, SharePoint file, I get a notification that on my Windows app on my phone, and I've got fingerprint enabled there, so I give it my fingerprint and I gain access. That took a little bit of getting used to, but it certainly makes things a lot more secure. So there's that constant balance between easy access and security. You want your people to be productive and efficient, but also you want your devices and infrastructure to be secure. So multi-factor authentication is the #1 thing you can enable in Office 365, and it doesn't cost anything to do. There's a lot of confusion about security, and we're going to touch on licensing just for briefly. I've got like 2 slides on it. What gets me, this, if I have multi-factor authentication turned on, do I need some sort of Azure AD, or and basically MFA, it doesn't cost anything across all of your Office 365 apps. And if you have questions about how to configure that, we've got a whole team of TCs that are happy to help, as well as account managers that can route those conversations appropriately within Innovia. But certainly reaching out to your Office 365 partner if you haven't enabled MFA yet is probably the #1 thing I hope you leave this presentation with. If you've already got that, great. You're on a great start. You're at a great point, I should say, to continue this. But MFA is super important. So Azure Active Directory is basically the backbone that is, and you don't have to have a paid account in Microsoft Azure AD to utilize it. It comes, there's a free version that allows you to authenticate. You can, in the early days of Azure AD, we wanted it to integrate with our on-premise Active Directory, which meant your on-premise username and password on your domain at your organization was replicated throughout Microsoft, so you only had one password to remember. Now it's scaled to interact with all of these different applications, many of them not even Microsoft based. Being able to enforce strong access policies across your apps, that's something else that is important. Whether they're on-premise or cloud-hosted, Office 365 can actually still be used to lock down those resources, and via some access policies that we're going to talk about a little later. So keep in mind, this isn't just for your Office 365 in the cloud resources. It's also for on-premise apps. And just some of the ways broken down that Microsoft is supporting your objectives when it comes to security, multi-factor authentication, both encryption at rest and in transit. So, what that means is when you're sending documents and they are in transit, whether those are going via email, you want to make sure that they're secure so that they're not open to a man-in-the-middle sort of attack where they can pull that down. This I like this chart because it shows, the privileged identity management and risk-based authentication are orange bullets under the capabilities section in the middle. Those are additional subscriptions you need, but the baseline resources, and then actually the the services engagement in terms of for organizations that need help. Microsoft provides those resources in a lot of cases to help deliver. Another important initiative in terms of security is DLP, which is data loss prevention, and then Azure information protection. If you can see in the back screen here where we're looking at a financial history Word document, when you start to enable some of these DLP and Azure IP security initiatives, you get pop-ups where in this case you can it's recommending that this file be labeled as confidential, and then there's a sensitivity, and you can encrypt and the different ways that you can encrypt. If it's highly confidential or confidential all employees, you can turn on do not forward, etc. So all of these sorts of policies are things that I knew about, and I knew about in a way mostly as it related to files on our on-prem file server through Active Directory security and permissions, but they're actually all stuff that was brought, and just really things have been available for 5+ years in Office 365. I mean, like documents that prevent a screen capture from happening on them, using traditional tools that you'd use to, so you can't share the document, but I'm just going to take a screen capture of it. There's some really cool examples of that online about how Microsoft prevents even screen captures, etc., from happening. Of course, you can always take another device and use it to take a picture, but there's a lot that you can do with just the built-in tools, and that's sort of the point of this presentation. It starts by knowing your data, and one of the reasons that I included several of these slides is that there's some helpful links here. So, what do these things mean in terms of sensitive information types? So what problem does it solve in terms of sensitive information types? We're identifying the sensitive data using built-in or custom expressions or functions. So if there's obviously things like a social security number, a credit card number, etc., those are the built-ins, and it realizes that there is sensitive information if it's an email or if it's a credit application. It's going to recognize information. Maybe it's just other contact information for other people at a company that has applied to do business with your company. You can start to define that and then create a built-in sensitive information type. If I click this, it's going to open the link, and let me just make sure that this switches over. All right. Yep. So here is this, and this is another point that we're going to get to towards the end, is the resources that you have available to you. This is Microsoft 365 document on information protection. So you can click the link down here to download a PDF, but you can. This is for a custom built-in sensitive information type that might be a little bit more, but you can see how we are creating these rules. There's some XML information, and again, this is custom. If I go up a level, it will take us to some more basic, but you can create rules within your organization. There are a ton of resources where these rules already exist, and you can just copy them and load them via PowerShell into your security and compliance center. So these links that are contained here, and I will go back to the slide here. just there's trainable classifiers, data classification. So when you start tagging documents, you don't have to do anything else other than create a tag within your organization, and Office 365 will take care of the rest. It will override. From access standpoint, it will, if you save this file that is either tagged with a classifier or a sensitive information type label, it will, people can still open those documents, but what they can do with those documents, then the tags and the labels start to take over through data classification methods, and you can't, you might not be able to forward it, certainly stuff about screen capture. So just these little, turning on these little things can make such a big difference in terms of what your exposure is in terms of your own file structure, etc. So here, this discover, label, monitor, and protect. Those are the four things that you want to do. You want to understand where is your most sensitive data and do some discovery around that. And then you want to label it. Once you've got your data labeled, then you want to monitor and protect it. So all of these information rights management, if you're connecting up through the Azure Information Protection scanner, so you can have Azure, you can turn that on and it will start to scan files within your Office 365 tenant if you've got that Azure Information Protection enabled and you have that subscription. So there's a lot of things you can do yourself where you don't really need a security expert to help you with it. Certainly our technology consultants are experts and happy to have these conversations with you, but just like everything else Microsoft, including their Dynamics ERP platform, Microsoft keeps investing resources in these applications to make them more end user friendly. So there's a lot of tools that they give you out of the box, and then combined with the training that's available online, makes it gives you a lot of options. So we'll just spend a minute here in terms of advanced artificial intelligence, or AI. Basically what that means is that Microsoft solutions are going to catch what others miss, and also provide constant monitoring and threat detection. So advanced AI is basically baked into all of the security products, and you don't need to do anything to turn that on as long as you've got an Office 365 subscription. You just need to realize that. So these are some of the identification protection. This is a screen grab of sort of the risks and what sort of either looking at policies or identifying risky users. That's a lot of times where we get questions about how do I determine who my riskiest users are, and there are products that help you identify that. Also, the advanced threat protection can pop up notifications about websites that have been classified as malicious. So again, going back to some of those earlier slides, you've got billions of data points that Microsoft is always grabbing. A lot of these security products, not just Microsoft, but McAfee, etc., work together to define these keep these lists of malicious websites, but you don't need really anything else besides the Microsoft tools in most cases, because it's the most comprehensive. We've got Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Last month there was some announcements about big changes to Defender, Microsoft Defender, and there's a free version of Microsoft Defender for home PCs and devices, and then there's the Microsoft Defender that comes bundled with a lot of the Office 365 SKUs. We're going to look at those SKUs here in a minute, but again, just great information about the ways that Defender can help, and the 5 sort of security protocols that we want to make sure that we are addressing. And then this is a a slide again on endpoint detection and response, what Microsoft refers to as EDR. And so they included baseline again, the additional subscription capabilities, and then the services. So some of the additional subscriptions will get into the testing of your users, sending out suspicious mail and see who your click happy users are. Stuff like that is included in those extended capabilities. And then again, the idea that you can secure your environment with a few clicks. You get your secure score for just the starter, and then in terms of deploying, what do you have? What have you done in terms of your Microsoft or Office 365 capabilities? Which of these things have you deployed? We saw these examples earlier on an earlier slide, but what does that mean? Just to add a little more depth to this idea, 50% of small businesses, of all small businesses, have experienced an attack in the past year. 61% were not able to operate for at least an hour based on that, whether it was just because the IT admin wanted to shut everything down, or because there were actual files that were required to do business that were held hostage by a encryption scam or something like that. And the average cost of a small to medium-sized business data breach, $149,000. Now, that's not money that is spent as a paying off a ransom on a ransomware attack. That's calculating lost revenue because you can't ship orders because your ERP system is locked, or you can't look at historical information to verify pricing, etc. It's productivity lost. It's remediation. It's having your IT team spend days or weeks securing, patching holes, or hiring someone to do that. So on average, 149,000. We are familiar with some of our own customers that have been through that, and would at least it would certainly corroborate those numbers. Question we get a lot: why should you choose Microsoft? And is Microsoft really a security provider? As we mentioned, they're investing more than $1 billion per year in security research and development, and the 4 pillars. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. Another great question is Microsoft Defender really as good as the third-party antivirus solutions? Back to my days as a network engineer, as a technology consultant, 10 plus years ago, Microsoft products then were, I was arguing, just as good as the paid-for products in a lot of cases, and now at this point they've been doing it so long that I would say in most cases they're even better. There's a lot of experts that agree. So the Windows Defender that comes built into almost all of your Office 365 subscriptions is rated a top antivirus by several different rating organizations. This question that we used to get a lot more when we had less people in the cloud: will my data be secure? And so security is built in at every level. What about privacy? And again, Microsoft 365, you can maintain control over your data. Microsoft doesn't have access to your data. You've got encryption, and there isn't any advertising or data mining on any of the Microsoft platforms as you might see on some other ones. So as promised, as a licensing expert, I don't like to leave licensing out of the conversation. As I said, we've only got a few slides here, but basically this is just a comparison, and mostly in the small to medium-sized business world, we're talking about Microsoft 365 Business Standard or Business Premium, and then sometimes we get in Office 365 E3. This is a comparison price-wise. You see Business Standard is $12.50 per user per month, where Premium and E3 are $20. What do you get there in terms of security? Business Premium actually gives you a lot more than the than the other options do. I've got one more slide here that compares E3 and rolls in E5. E5 again is significantly more expensive, mostly because it includes the Teams PSTN conferencing and phone system skew to it. But E5 gives you some more analytics and compliance as it relates to email archiving and discovery. But you can add those SKUs for just a few dollars if you want to go all in security, but you don't need a phone system. You could take business premium at $20 per user and add a $4 or $5 SKU on and get almost all of the same capabilities. So so that is so again, these are the most popular SKUs: business standard, business premium, and E3, and just a comparison of what you're getting there. So then, what are the advanced security management capabilities? And we're going to jump through these pretty quickly. But again, you just got this best in class that's going to handle all of this, the baselines of what this is, from a not a security perspective, because security is baked in, but getting everything that from the functional area, from email down to file sharing, the security features. You've got Windows Defender, that's for Office 365. You've got their antivirus. You do have the ability, and we're going to talk just a little bit briefly about Microsoft Intune for device management, and then conditional access. So the admin center security features that give you application management, as well as management of your devices, whether they're Android or iOS, as well as all of your client hardware, running Windows 10, etc. And you've got the ability for, a lost laptop that's joined to an Intune subscription to be able to do a remote wipe of all the corporate data that's on the device, in the same way that you can do that on a phone that is managed by Intune, even though you don't own it. The Microsoft Defender for 365, safe links, safe attachments, that anti-phishing, and those sorts of turning all of that on. And we're going to get into that here just in the last few minutes. But here is a great visual of all the things that here we've got a device, and how does Microsoft help secure this device? What are all the security considerations for it? So we've got what starts with a Microsoft Azure Active Directory, which is could enable some conditional access points for corporate resources, that files, etc., that we're going to access, or I guess applications as well as files. And then we could use Intune to make sure that the devices that are connecting to that maintain a certain level of security. And we have things like, lock, screen locks enabled, passwords enabled, multi-factor authentication. And we can do that all with, with a $20 per user per month SKU that's also giving us all of our email and file storage, etc. Conditional access. So again, you can't access these unless you meet certain conditions, and you can define those conditions based on the device, based on the role within the company, and then that all of those things get tied. Compliance is another, and data loss prevention is the biggest part of compliance. So you can implement data loss prevention by applying policies, and these policies can monitor everything from Teams, Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, even non-Microsoft Cloud apps can be monitored by these DLP policies that you enable. So data loss prevention, a big part of data loss prevention is Exchange online archiving, that typically requires an additional SKU over the base business premium, but the ability to enforce for your users their archiving and deleted item recovery and retention policies. So if a user accidentally deletes something, or if they delete something on purpose that they don't want the organization to see, enabling these policies through Exchange Online Archiving means that you, as the IT admin of the organization, have control over what is being held onto and what is being disposed of, so that you're sure that you're in compliance with so that if you have a bad actor within your organization, they can't cover their tracks. Sensitivity labels. This was something that that as I went through some of my own security training a few months ago to get certified, that I learned a lot about. Again, using information protection and label policies to apply across your organization, so that you don't even have to apply these manually. You can, but they can be suggested, and you can enable that these policies will automatically add sensitivity labels to the appropriate types of document if they contain private information, and you can define that. So obviously, when you talk about implementing solutions like this, it ends up from a setup perspective. We start with looking at the devices. So, you know, our devices running at least Windows 10. This is on the basically on the Intune using Azure Active Directory, but having the right operating system is the starting point. Then you've got mobile device setup, obviously, and I guess the important point here is once you sign in with an Office 365 account on a mobile device, by default, it's going to start applying some policies, and some of you probably are already aware of some of those things. But that's you know, basically all you need to do once the Office 365 apps are installed on a phone is sign in with an account, and it's going to secure that device at the bare minimum for the, you know, what comes out of the box, and then certainly you have the ability to secure those devices even more through security and compliance. So we will get you know, what are we talking about here when it comes to security and compliance. We want to take on malware. We want to, you know, we're going to remove and hopefully so your users don't even see any phishing attempts. We're going to control spam and conditional access through DLP and email retention. Again, the secure score, a big part of that is showing you know, what factors you've enabled, and then you know, and basically to access your secure score, if you are an admin within your Office 365 tenant, you go to security.microsoft.com and it will show you your score. Anti-malware, obviously malware is a big part of what launches these ransomware attacks. And here are, in these following slides, and we're just going to click through a lot of them, going through the, you know, how do you implement, and in just these few steps here, you know, in this case, we're doing the anti-malware stuff, but you go to security, signing in, go to the email and collaboration section, policies and rules, and then threat policies, select anti-malware, select the default policy just to enable that. And then it's so there's some really easy, you know, 3 or 4 step. Here's an anti-phishing one. How do you implement that? How do you implement safe links? So a lot of good information in the slide deck, and I'm going to be including this in my blog post to follow up from this presentation. So if you are on our email list, you'll get a notification, or you can check out our blogs at inovia.com, and it's going to include this deck with links to some of this stuff. Again, these are just really easy steps to, you know, how do you turn on the default anti-spam policy? A lot of that stuff happens automatically, but these are real easy steps to enable these safe attachments, conditional access. How do you turn on multi-factor authentication? That's a question I get often. looking at, this is just a screen capture of the conditional access policy where you require multi-factor authentication. Really, really easy just to grant access, fill in the box for require multi-factor authentication, and then go from there. The DLP setup, email retention, it's a different website, compliance.microsoft.com. Archiving, that's managed under the compliance, and then this is some of the just business premium stuff we've already touched on. Going to, again, here's just a note that the Microsoft Defender antivirus and active threats are rolled out in phases. So sometimes, I think by now everything is gone through. That's been now going on over 6 months, so it should be rolled out to everyone. But just in case, the Defender antivirus active threats page on my demo instance, there's I don't have a lot of information there yet. So auto forwarding, turning that off as a policy. So a user within your organization can't automatically forward all of their mail to an external account, and that's a tool that a lot of hackers use to gain access without anyone knowing. Couple easy steps to configure that, and then and we get to the data points here. How are we going to manage those devices and the data on those devices? You can manage that all through the Windows 365 Admin Center. You can apply policies, and as I said, devices that access Office 365 data by default have to adhere to some of the basic policies. All right. So last part that I wanted to talk about is training for security in Office 365. And the first place to start is through the Microsoft Learn platform. For those of you who aren't aware, this is completely free resources. If you go to learn.microsoft.com, you can search in here. I just searched for security and came up with the Introduction to Security in Microsoft 365. It starts to keep track of your points here. If you complete this little scenario here on intro, it's 800 XPs. I'm at level 8. I've got 19,000 something across all my Microsoft Learn training, and this is just my demo account. But you have, it's a really great way to get started, and it, in small bite-size portions. So you've got, we'll start with the intro. Let's say that you can actually assign people within your organization. If you've got a couple people that maybe serve in an IT role and you want them to brush up, you can look at, review these resources with them, and start to develop a plan about how they can. And again, this is all free. This doesn't require any additional training dollars. Then the next part that we can get into is under the Microsoft certifications. This is the path that I went through earlier this year. So each of these certification exams, I believe, cost like $150 to take the exam. There are trainings that are available. There's a lot of free resources. I didn't go through any paid for training. I just used the Microsoft resources, and I'm certainly not a security expert on a daily basis, but I was able to pass these exams successfully and learn a lot about the different methods that Office 365 has, which is sort of the inspiration for this presentation. When going through all of those certification exams, it became evident that there is so much that's just included out of the box that our end users don't know about. So let's start to talk about that a little more, as well as the issues with the cyber criminals and the increase in cyber crime over the last 18 months, especially some of the high profile ones that jumped out at us. So So basically, if you want more information about any of this stuff, there's going to be a follow-up blog that includes this slide deck as well as a lot of information and links that we didn't have time to get to today. The one question I get is from a general user. How what's the best thing that I can do to increase security in Office 365? And this is from a Microsoft article. These are the top 10 things that you can do as an Office 365 admin. At the top of the list there is setting up multi-factor authentication. Maybe just at this point, just about everyone in your organization should have a smartphone and could set up the Microsoft authentication app on their phone. But it can just be something as simple as requiring a text message and that can you don't even need a smartphone for. So that's number one. And number two is to train your users. And again, that we find organizations with intelligent and responsible users in a lot of cases don't need any security because their users are the security. Their users are always questioning. Most organizations don't have 100% of responsible users, and sometimes even the responsible users can make mistakes, whether that's just inadvertent or they get tricked. So again, training your users, and we're talking about using the free Microsoft Learn resources. Not everyone needs to be a certified security expert within your organization, but it's not bad that if you've got some IT staff to allocate some time and budget for maybe them to get trained. Another huge thing in top 3 is use dedicated admin accounts. So that means that the accounts that your users are using every day aren't admin accounts and they don't have the ability to make changes across your organization or open up security holes, etc. If they're going to do change policies, or especially around security, you want to make sure that there's a dedicated admin account for that. Those admin accounts, in most cases, aren't licensed accounts, so you don't have to buy extra subscriptions for them. They're just used for management, but you want to make sure that people in their day-to-day business can't accidentally make changes because they don't even have that account to use. And that is, those are the top 3. Then if we go down, you can see, raise the anti-malware protection and email, protect against ransomware, and stop or auto forwarding. All of those things are included. The ability to do that's included in business standard. And turning on message encryption and protecting email from phishing, as well as using safe links and safe attachments. All of that is included in Business Premium. So we're not even getting into any of the extra SKUs here, but those are the top 10 things you can do in Office 365. So I told Angie that I would try to keep this around 45 minutes. I've gone over by just a couple. If you want to learn more, reach out to me. I'm always happy to have these conversations, and usually they come via account managers, but you can reach out direct to me at that number and email address. And as always, check out our upcoming events at anovia.com/events. I'll put up my thank you. And from here, Angie, if we've got any questions, lay them on me. Otherwise, we're good to go.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. No questions have come through. However, if you do have any, please feel free to contact your account manager here at Anovia Consulting, or you can contact Jeff. So I just want to thank everyone who is on our webinar today, or if you're watching on demand, thank you for taking the time out to join us. And thank you, Jeff, for your presentation.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Oh, don't forget, we do have more webinars coming up. Tomorrow, we have our Director of Project Teams, Gino Pack, presenting on Troubleshooting Business Central with Azure Applications Insights. And you can check out more of our upcoming events at anovia.com/events. And we also have new training workshops for you and your team members to attend. You can visit our training workshop page at anovia.com/workshops for more information and to register for the training workshop that fits your role. And also, don't forget about our Innovia Conversation podcast. Our hosts, Steve Waltz and Jeff Pergolski, have provided a ton of podcasts that they've recorded over the past couple of years. And you can learn more about all those podcasts and how you can subscribe at innovia.com/podcast. And for those of you attending Dynamics Con in Anaheim, California next week, be sure to stop by the Innovia room and talk to our team. And you can also check out our conference page for all the conferences, and that's innovia.com/conferences to learn more about those and to register for our customer conference in May 2022. All right, well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon on another Innovia webinar. Take care, everyone. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.